Hey there, Vikings Nation. Get ready to dive deep into the Skol state of mind. Join our host, D. Woods, as he shares his unfiltered takes on all things Vikings, from expert game analysis to player controversies and everything in between. If you love the Vikings for better or worse, then you've come to the right place. So grab a drink and let's talk all things purple and gold. This is the Skol State of Mind podcast.
So let's get to the offseason summary. Now, all honestly, it's an offseason, and I'm not like average Vikings fans that's basically predicting, the Vikings to go 17-0 and dominate the league, and every draft pick that they made is the best draft pick in history, and everybody's going to be a Hall of Famer, and every guy that they sign is, going to be an all-pro guy. I'm a little optimistic. I kind of want to wait to see how things develop, but I'm just a little interested of, things to come. We just found out a couple of days ago that Zadarius Smith was traded to the Cleveland Browns. I know a lot of people really feel like Kwesi kind of, dropped the ball on that, but I actually think that was the only deal that he was probably was going to get at the time. And I kind of feel he was trying to think in something else, because if he really felt like he didn't want Zadarius Smith on the roster, then he could have saved more money and cut him in the beginning of the offseason, which would have made more sense. I mean, I would say that's going to be a learning experience for Kwesi going forward, that sometimes you just have to, pull the trigger on certain things, and you can't wait, because when you wait, the value that you're trying to receive, starts to go away. It is what it is with that. I just kind of felt like when Zadarius Smith kind of wiped his Twitter and put all that other stuff out there, thanking the team that he really had no intentions on bringing a Viking next season. And I mean, he only played half of the season, balls out, where he was actually, tops and pressures, and he was getting sacks and everything, but he kind of fell off after that knee injury that he had, which is fine. It's cool, whatever. But I think the biggest conundrum that Minnesota is having right now is Dalvin Cook. I'm tired of talking about it. I really am. And I really think the Vikings need to make a decision and stick to it, because you have to understand, when you're trading an asset away, there's no guarantee that you're going to get equal value for that asset in things that's coming back. Just think about when the Vikings traded Randy Moss to the Oakland Raiders. Yeah, they got a starting linebacker and a draft pick, which I think they drafted Troy Williamson in that draft, and he never panned out. But they were able to get that headache off the team, and that's something that they wanted to do. And I really feel like if you're in the GM role and you're able to make these trades or whatever, you have to understand that some trades you're not going to get equal value back. And if you try to hold on to these pieces so long, then it ends up happening to where there's a Zadarius Smith situation. You held on so long and you have to trade picks away just to get him off the team. And it should never come to that. I'm thinking personally, after the Cook situation is figured out, down the line, maybe he takes a pay cut now. That's another thing that a lot of people are not talking about too. The offseason is basically over now. We already into rookie mini camps. So unless another starting caliber running back gets hurt, where is he going to go? So maybe it might be best if he takes a pay cut now, moving forward, and kind of a prove it deal, and actually, hit the offseason next year and kind of see, where things are going to go from there. But like I said before, I'm just tired of hearing about this Dalvin Cook situation. And I love Dalvin. I think Dalvin is probably one of the best running backs in the league. But, the league treats running backs differently now, when they get close to that age of 30, and especially with Dalvin Cook's, current cap situation and how much they're getting paid. I'm not the best cap guy, and don't quote me on exact cap numbers because I'm not a what they call quote unquote capologist, but I think it's like 14 million and some change or something like that, or around there. But hey, like I said, maybe he takes a pay cut going forward, but I mean, we never know. We never know. But I'm just tired of hearing about it and everyone giving the same opinion over and over again. And as for another thing in the offseason, Danielle Hunter, I honestly think Danielle Hunter is probably going to get a 2-year extension of upwards to maybe 18, 20 million per season, because I don't think that Brian Flores comes to this team and not want to coach Danielle Hunter and Zadarius Smith. I mean, I just say you pull the trigger on that, and maybe you can move the cap numbers around a little bit better, and make Danielle happy, because Danielle has been underpaid for some time now. But it's not in your benefit to trade him. A lot of people out there saying trade him or whatever, but I don't think is beneficial to the cap, because you're going to be paying more to trade him away versus him on your team. And a pass rusher with Danielle Hunter's caliber, I mean, you would kind of want that on the team. I mean, a great pass rush makes your whole defense better, and you have a lot of young defensive backs on this team outside of Harrison Smith. I mean, even even the guy that they signed in the offseason is still relatively young. So you don't want those young defensive backs to actually have to hold coverage for too long. So the best thing they need is an accurate pass rush, and you need the Hunter to do that. So that's just how I've been feeling about the offseason. I don't really want to get into the every draft pick as of right now, because I mean the draft is over. They're already in rookie mini. They're already in rookie mini camp right now, or stuff like that. And I know the schedule released, and I really want to get into that right now too, of trying to say what games they're going to win, what games they're not going to win, because in actuality we never know. And there's always a year to where one team goes in another direction. Like you get some teams that's pretty much high on totem pole, like they're going to peak this year, and they go the other way and only win 3 games. And you got teams that are projected to only win 3 games, they win 10. So actually trying to figure out the reason losses is not beneficial right now. But let's get into the topic that you guys all basically came to see, well, hear and see my opinion on. And this is just something I've been feeling the past couple of days. I mean, I talked about it on Twitter for a little bit, so I just thought I would basically, make a video about it, and, take the gloves off and make this actually my first podcast, my first episode for the podcast of the Skol State of Mind. And here it is. Should the Vikings trade Jefferson in the 2024 offseason? Now, I know when you hear that, you're honestly thinking, oh, this guy doesn't like Justin Jefferson, and what is he talking about? I'm telling you straight up, I love Justin Jefferson. I think he's great. He's a great talent. I mean, shit, he's been pretty much the best receiver in the league the past couple of years. But what I'm getting to is Justin Jefferson is probably your best asset on your team to actually fix some of the mistakes of the team and actually build for the future. That's what I am on right now, is actually building for the future. And building for the future, I feel like you have to try and develop and maybe trade up in the draft to get a franchise quarterback. And that's just something that the Vikings have been lacking for some time. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying Kirk Cousins is trash, and I'm just saying, like, Kirk Cousins is getting up in age now, and that paired with his cap number, how long are you going to do this song and dance with extended him for a year, and going forward to where you're robbing Peter to pay Paul? I mean, Justin Jefferson is probably your biggest asset going forward. Now let's talk about Jordan Addison. The Vikings selected Jordan Addison in this year's draft at 23. You got some people saying that he can actually be a number one receiver on any NFL team, and that it's going to be a luxury going forward to pair him with Justin Jefferson. Some people call it Batman and Robin, or however you want to call it, and pair it up. Now, with that being said, let's say best case scenario, Jordan Addison has the type of year that Justin Jefferson had his rookie season. I mean, shit, the way Percy Harvin had his rookie season. Let's say he has something where he gets over 1,000 yards, 5+ touchdowns, goes to the Pro Bowl, maybe makes an all-pro team, and gets announced offensive rookie of the year. Let's say he gets all those accolades within his one season. Well, then that will let you know that Addison has the capability of being a number one receiver in the NFL. So you would have the luxury of having two number one receivers on the same team. We've been there multiple times before. If you want to go back to it, Chris Carter, Randy Moss, two number one receivers on the same team. Adam Thielen, Stephon Diggs, basically two number one receivers on the team. In my opinion, I've always felt that Stephon Diggs was the number one. Adam Thielen was the number two because Diggs is just so dynamic. But what I'm saying is, though, we understand that Justin Jefferson is due his contract extension going forward. They already agreed to his fifth year option, which is 19 million some change, right? So we already know going forward, Justin Jefferson is going to get more expensive. And that's why I'm talking about maybe trading Justin Jefferson in the 2024 offseason if Jordan Addison shows the league, the Vikings, fans, that he can be a true number one receiver. The kid is already talking about how he loves running routes and it's like painting on the blank canvas. Like that's how great receivers talk. But I really want to see it. Now, how many Ring of Honor and Hall of Fame skill players have been through the Vikings in the past couple of years, or if not history? I mean, think about the list. It's like Adrian Peterson. I mean, he was the last running back to win MVP, in the NFL. You had Percy Harvin, you had Stephon Diggs, Adam Thielen, Kyle Rudolph, Randy Moss, Chris Carter, multiple guys. That's just on offense. I mean, what about defense? Jared Allen, Harrison Smith, Antoine Winfield, Xavier Rhodes, the Williams Wall, Pat Williams, Kevin Williams, Brian Robertson. I'm not saying all these guys are Hall of Famers or all these guys are Ring of Honor guys. What I'm saying is these guys are at a time where top-notch players in the NFL, and they made a difference. But by me saying all those names of all those skill players, I did not name one quarterback. And the only quarterback that will probably be a Ring of Honor guy going forward will probably be Kirk Cousins. Now, we can have a whole nother podcast about, Kirk Cousins, not a Ring of Honor guy. But the thing about Kirk Cousins that people don't give him a lot of credit for is he's Mr. Available. So him being Mr. Available, he has the stats, but he doesn't have what people would say that moxie, that going down the field drive and, actually trying to put his team on his back to actually win multiple playoff games. I mean, Kirk Cousins only has one playoff game in his tenure with the Vikings. So you have all those skill players combined, but you haven't had that one core franchise quarterback that can move the needle and get you in the playoffs consistently to compete for a Super Bowl. Now, that's what we need to be thinking about. We need to be talking about competing on a consistent basis for Super Bowls. Look at what Pat Mahomes is doing over there in Kansas City. Now, if you know and you know what happened, how they got Pat Mahomes, they actually have to trade up in the draft to get Pat Mahomes, and they set him behind Alex Smith for a year in order for him to develop. All right, that's what you got to do sometimes. And look at what the AFC is putting out at quarterback. I mean, just to name a few: Justin Herbert, Pat Mahomes, of course, um, my boy over there in Baltimore, Lamar Jackson, Justin Herbert. I mean, the list goes on of franchise quarterbacks that are in the AFC, right? So, hey, how many times we won't keep putting these skill players, in the ring of honor and then not be a quarterback? Cap space has been the Minnesota Vikings problem for a long time now. And I'm feeling like this, like Justin Jefferson's extension and new contract is not going to kick in for like the 2 years or whatever. And I feel you can move him in the 2024 offseason, and that can help you fix your cap space going forward. Why I'm saying that is because Kirk Cousins' contract comes off the books, during that season. I do understand that he has some void years and, after that, but it's not that significant. It's really not. So if you decided to trade Justin Jefferson in the 2024 offseason, that will actually help your cap space going forward because you will be trading him before his new deal will actually kick in. And if you trade him for whatever you could think is a franchise quarterback at that time, you will have that rookie quarterback on a team-controlled 5-year deal. It ain't going to be nothing to what Kirk Cousins is getting paid right now. And you would actually pair that quarterback coming in with Jordan Addison on his second year, Christian Darrisaw, Ryan O'Neal, Alexander Madison, TJ Hawkinson. Only thing you're going to actually be missing is Justin Jefferson, but your cap space will be a whole lot better. Now, we don't know what the other side of the ball is going to look like. I mean, we don't know if Harrison Smith's going to be there, but I'm saying if you decide to trade Justin Jefferson in the 2024 offseason, it will actually help your cap space going forward. A lot of people don't understand, and they probably would not do that, but I think that should be an actual option because it will help your cap space because we already know quarterbacks are extremely expensive. Quarterbacks are a premium in the NFL, and the money that they command, I mean, it's ridiculous. Just look at what we're dealing with Kirk Cousins right now. I mean, you really can't compete, on a year-to-year basis. You need everything to work in your favor and get lucky just to get in the playoffs. Like, I don't want to go through that no more. I really want the Vikings to get a franchise quarterback. And I'm going to tell you guys right now, like, I'm not necessarily emotionally attached to certain players. Like, I want these players to succeed, but at the end of the day, I want the Vikings to consistently compete for a Super Bowl. Like I became a Viking fan, because of Robert Smith, Randy Moss, Chris Carter, Randall Cunningham. That's when I really start getting into the Vikings. And those players are gone, but I'm loyal to the team. So, and I'm seeing how the team is keep repeating the same thing over and over again, but they're not doing what they can to actually get a franchise quarterback. And that's what drives the league, man. Franchise quarterbacks drive the league. Now let's talk a little bit about Kirk Cousins. Like I told you before, I am not a Kirk Cousins hater. Like, I love Kirk Cousins. I like his availability. I mean, the guy takes a lot of hits, but he consistently gets up and he plays, to the best of his ability. But he doesn't suck. So if Kirk Cousins does not suck, what does that mean? That basically means that you're not going to be selected in the top of the draft because of it, right? So you're probably going to win 7 to 8 games with Kirk Cousins because he doesn't suck. That's just how it is. He's not a bad quarterback. He ain't a Hall of Fame quarterback, but he's not a bad quarterback. So the draft selection process is like you're going to be drafting either 15 or lower compared to other teams. And if you think about where the majority of Hall of Fame quarterbacks are drafted, you ain't gonna be there. Like it's just not possible. Now let's talk about the draft selection, compared to what I said about Kirk Cousins, right? So Joe Burrow was drafted number 1. I think Pat Mahomes, they traded up in the teens to get him or whatever. Majority of the franchise quarterbacks are drafted at the top of the draft. I'm not saying you can't get a Dak Prescott or a Kirk Cousins, or you can slide and trade back up to the end of the first round to get your Lamar Jackson. I'm not saying you can't do that, but what I'm saying is majority of the franchise quarterbacks are drafted at the top of the draft. And you're going to do what you have to do to get to the top of the draft. We already heard the rumblings of the Vikings, just calling, picking up the phone, asking about Bryce Young, going forward. But you're drafting number 1. Like, if the Vikings really wanted to move up in the draft this year to try to get a franchise quarterback, they will probably have to trade Kirk Cousins somewhere, get some picks back, maybe a 2 and a 3rd, maybe, right? Then they were going to have to mortgage the future and draft and give that team multiple first and second round picks. So that's just a move up. So that's why I'm saying maybe they should really think about trading Justin Jefferson in the offseason and get maybe 2 first-round picks, 2 second-round picks, and use that as ammunition to move up in the draft, to draft you a Caleb Williams going forward. I'm not saying Caleb is the guy. What I'm saying is maybe be within that top 10 of draft picks so you can draft you a franchise quarterback going forward and then have the pieces around him so he can actually succeed. But you're not going to get that with Kirk Cousins. You're not. You have to really think about that. You're not. And you got to really stop going out there and thinking like everybody's going to want Kirk Cousins and you can trade him here and you can trade him there and you're going to get this back. You're going to have to create your own trade partner. And that's why I'm saying Justin Jefferson is the Vikings' best asset going forward. He's the best receiver in the league right now. Get as much as you can for Justin Jefferson, trade up in the draft you a franchise quarterback, and build your team. And if you really sit there and you think about it, if Minnesota did that, that would actually give Kwesi and KOC more time because now they have their guy that they can actually develop and move forward with. Like it just helps everybody out. It helps the cap space. It helps the coaches. It helps the culture for us to actually, get around this guy and actually believe, hey, going forward, we finally have our guy. Like we can't really keep doing this quarterback mercenary for too long. It's just like, I don't know how y'all feel about it, but at the end of the day, I want my team to be consistently competing for Super Bowl titles going forward. Like I do. And I know people are going to go out there and say like, well, what about Jalen Hurts? He was drafted in the second round. I understand that. He was drafted in the second round. That's fine. I wish the Vikings would have took him in the second round. But look at the statistics. Franchise quarterbacks are always drafted in the top of the draft. Like, benefit of the rules do happen. You're not going to draft a guy in the 6th round, 7th round, and think that he's going to automatically come out and be a Tom Brady. It's not going to happen. You're going to have to trade assets to move up in the draft to actually have, the availability to select the guy at the top of the draft. That's what you're going to have to do. And if Justin Jefferson is traded so the Vikings can do that, I'm cool with it. Because just think about it like this. We can take this off right here. Just think about it like this, right? Let's say Kirk Cousins is not on the team in 2024. And who you got playing quarterback there? I don't want to hear no Trey Lance. I don't want to hear no, Hall that they drafted in the 5th round. We don't know what this guy's going to be yet. We don't know. I don't want no stopgap quarterback, because the last thing you want to happen is going forward, if Justin Jefferson is and Addison is on that team with TJ Hockenson, KJ Osborne, McBride, all those skill players, Christian Darrisaw, Ryan O'Neal. What if that quarterback is incapable of getting in the ball? What if that quarterback is incapable of actually just playing? What if we run into a Kellen Mond situation? The first thing those receivers are going to do is they're going to go to the front office and they're going to demand a trade. You avoid all that. You avoid all that by trading Justin Jefferson, moving up in the draft, selecting the franchise QB. Now, I understand people are going to say, like, well, you don't know if Caleb Williams or whoever you draft is going to pan out. So what? Why I say so what? Because it's going to be easy to move on from him if he does not pan out. Didn't the Vikings draft Christian Ponder number 7 in that year's draft? And what happened? They drafted Teddy Bridgewater a couple of years later. It's easier to move on from a rookie quarterback on a rookie deal than it is moving on from a veteran on a massive deal like Kirk Cousins. I mean, just think about how Kirk Cousins got to this team. The team was well-built, best defense in the league, right? They had 3 quarterbacks that was hitting the offseason. You had Teddy Bridgewater, you had Case Keenum, and you had Sam Bradford. All 3 of those quarterbacks came off the books that year, and the Vikings were able to sign Kirk Cousins to the 100% guaranteed deal. That's how easy it is to move off draft picks versus high-paid, veteran players. But I'm just giving you guys something to think about, going forward. And I really appreciate you guys liking, subscribing to the podcast. Going forward, I'm going to have more content. This is just my first episode. And I just wanted to, like I said before, I just want to take the gloves off and give you guys something to talk about. But thanks for listening.
Thanks for tuning into the Skol State of Mind podcast. Take a beat to give us a 5-star rating and review wherever you get your podcasts. Join us next time, and don't forget to follow Skol State of Mind on all social media platforms to keep up with all the news and updates. Thanks again for listening, and as always, Skol Vikings.